Debbie MacCoy's condo complex has crumbling foundations. She's been pushing for testing for years and says this is a necessity.
Hello, I'm Debbie MacCoy, and welcome to the 7th episode, the 10-year anniversary of Connecticut Crumbling Foundations. From July 2015 until present, July 2025, Connecticut has confronted a long-tail crisis by investigating the cause, the magnitude, and the economic impact. The response from the governor, town leaders, legislators, federal delegation, department heads, and Attorney General was extraordinary. The formation of an ad hoc committee within the Capital Region Council of Government, which is known as CROG, as well as the formation of the coalition, CCACB, the Concrete Queens, the legislative arm to the coalition, the Condo 5 group, and within the legislature, the Concrete Caucus. Furthermore, the creation of a captive insurance CFSIC. While the investigation was taking place, legislators were busy meeting with affected homeowners. In fact, the first meeting was organized in November 2015, just prior to the coalition forming in January 2016. Both the coalition and CROG were busy holding meetings and gathering information from town assessors as well as affected homeowners. Here with me today, we have patient zero, Linda Tofolosky, who 30 years ago informed Modus of her failing foundation. I know, because I just looked at your report and it says May 9th, 1995. Well, we have also Tim Heim, the president of CCACB, Frank Forsano, a member of the Condo 5 group, U.S. Congressman Courtney, CROG's Pauline Yoder, and myself, Debbie MacCoy. Some other legislators will be joining us later in the show, but for right now, I'm going to go around the table and have everyone introduce themselves, and then I'm going to interview Congressman Courtney. So we'll start with you, Frank.
I'm Frank Forsano, member of the Condo 5, also a member of the political committee of the Coalition Against Crumbling Basements, and currently the president of the Ryfield 2 Condo Association. Been very involved with the condo side of the Crumbling Basement Foundation issue.
Joe Courtney, I'm the congressman from Eastern Connecticut's 2nd Congressional District, which comprises 63 towns, roughly east of the river, obviously the hardest hit part of the state in terms of crumbling foundations. I live in Vernon, which is also one of those ground zero towns, along with Deb, and again, it's really delighted to be here. I think this is so important to keep a good record of what happened here and what work needs still to be done.
Correct.
Pauline Yoder, Chief Operating Officer at the Capital Region Council of Governments, also known as CROG, much easier to say that. In terms of CROG, we've been involved since 2015, 2016, actually, where we started the ad hoc committee on crumbling foundations, just learning about the issue, getting the town leaders together, and also at this point in time, we also run the testing program, as well as the low moderate income gap funding program, funded thanks to Congressman Courtney.
Yeah. Tim Heim, I started the Connecticut Coalition Against Crumbling Basements, CCACB, back in early 2016, and it's a pleasure to be here, Deb. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Linda Tofolosky, patient zero. My house was built in 1983 and noticed cracks in 1990. So I've been involved from the beginning and until all these people came along and then we got something going.
She's also the matriarch of the Concrete Queens.
Yeah.
Now, I say I found her, she says she found me, but together we make a family.
Oh, boy!
You know that saying, it takes a village? Well, this village got a lot done.
Yes,
and we'll discuss, which I've discussed at length, the legislative acts that were passed since 2016. Every single year, the Concrete Caucus has addressed the issue. And we're going to start with Congressman Courtney today. And we're going to talk about when he arrived on the scene, and it was very early on. It was in 2016 when CROG formed the ad hoc committee. Joe, you came in and you started, you rolled your sleeves up and you helped Republicans, Democrats, Independents. You were the person to go to because, as you just said in the introduction, your district has the most towns. It's, you know, a lot of the times I talked about the Northeast region that was hit, but it was actually the capital region which is hit the hardest. And in that District 35, there were 28 towns affected in that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the capital region is also the most populated region in Connecticut. So it affects your neighbors, it affects your town, it affects the state. And this long tail issue was handled, I think, the best out of anything I've seen. And I think we learned from Canada. They gave us the template and we ran with it. So, Joe, why don't you start out by telling me some of the things that you've done?
Yeah, and again, just to footstop the point, I mean, to me, this is an incredible success story for a real, honest-to-God, bona fide grassroots movement.
Yeah.
I mean, people came together because the old-fashioned way, in terms of just you know, learning about the problem, that it wasn't just sort of limited to your house, which it was for so long, and the fact that it was a systemic problem. Emanating, you know, basically from MacCoy and Wellington, which is, of course, in the 2nd Congressional District. And as the issue really emerged in the media and going to meetings sometimes on completely different topics, but running into people like Tim Heim, who invited me to his house in the summer of 2016, and we walked through his man cave and his basement, and it was just absolutely jaw-dropping to see how rampant the problem was. And so, yeah, I mean, we started looking at any sort of tools in the toolbox. Frankly, we had a lot of work to do, everybody did, in terms of just understanding the science of what the heck was going on. And then what government programs could possibly you know, be used. I mean, obviously one of the real big challenges, and I think for a lot of us still kind of burns, is the fact that our property casualty insurance system just really failed in terms of really being able to you know, provide assistance to people. So, you know, looking around for government programs, I mean, initially, you know, we went to HUD and we were able to get some money provided for the Community Development Block Grant Program that allowed for some, you know, support for testing, which CROG did a great job of administering. The tax code in 2017, we had a brief shining moment where a property casualty loss deduction, and again, the people at the IRS, who everybody loves to bash, I mean, they were fabulous in terms of, you know, really recognizing this problem quickly. And we were able to get about a 3-year or so window of people where they could write down some of the losses if their tax year filing fell within that window. The 2017 law repealed property casualty loss, and we're still trying to see if there's a way to restore some of that. When CFSIC came along, you know, worked with Mr. Magalaris and the team there in terms of making sure that they got the right IRS tax status so that, you know, any, you know, they wouldn't be burdened with any kind of corporate tax in terms of their formation, and obviously making sure that the payments out were not treated as taxable income, which again, I have to say the IRS was terrific in terms of really working with us and understanding the issue. And lastly, we got some funding for UConn to really have the School of Engineering engaged in terms of the science, which I mentioned earlier, and then the funding for that GAP program for lower income homeowners who, again, had to deal with issues like driveway repair and stairs, et cetera. But again, I just want to say that this, if you go to Massachusetts, you don't see the same kind of progress that took place here in Connecticut. And no one, and to me, that just you know, reaffirms the point, you know, no one should take this for granted in terms of how this all came together and how much people were able to achieve working together.
Yeah. So I also want to mention the Government Accounting Office.
Yes.
The GAO came. When myself and Tim and Pauline, we were all addressing the federal delegation, and U.S. Secretary of HUD, Ben Carson, I got up and spoke about FEMA. And FEMA, we tried to get FEMA here, and the governor sent a letter asking for help for the investigative part of it. And that was to find out what the cause, the magnitude, and the economic impact. And you cannot certify a presidential disaster declaration without being able to have those three things checked off. And I remember we talked about it, and I was fascinated because the three things that FEMA will do for us is the casualty loss, bank forbearance, and also funds. And at some point it's 33,000 or 38,000, but we really, tried to get it. And since they wouldn't help, it took CRCOG, the ad hoc committee, to learn the magnitude. And they learned it through the testing program, and we wouldn't have had the testing program without the governor. So it started at the top.
Yeah.
And worked its way down by selecting CROG, because all the town leaders were highly involved. And so we got together with CROG, and I don't think we missed a meeting, not a single meeting. And I was there with my hand raised every time too. But CROG helped with the magnitude. The economic impact came through the GAO report. And then the cause, Yukon was hired by the Department of Consumer Protection. So we learned all three things, but then we learned in 2017 when then President Trump repealed the casualty loss, and it's only for actual disasters that happen in the moment, sudden disasters, not slow-moving disasters. So what you did was you worked around it. We couldn't get FEMA, so what you got was all these programs for us, the casualty loss, the government accounting office showing us what the economic impact. You provided the magnitude for us. I remember when GAO came to my home, I sent you an email and said, Pauline, show me every town and how many, and it was like 1,800 tests had already gone through you guys. You had probably better than DCP, because that was complaints.
Yes, we had the testing
This was testing, and people were utilizing the funds that they gave. So it was a joint effort, and what you did for us is, and the mapping.
Yes.
Yeah, it was the first federal mapping. The USGS, United States Geological Survey, got involved thanks to Joe and some of the other delegates, John Larson and Blumenthal and Murphy. They came around, they were here, but Joe, he was our go-to guy. And he attended all your meetings, Tim, and mine. So both Tim and I and Linda and Frank, as affected homeowners, very much appreciate what you did for Connecticut.
To me, aside from, again, and we'll hear some great people here who were instrumental in terms of moving this stuff along. But, people, again, have a lot of, and I think sometimes deservedly so, cynicism about, Washington, state capital, that nothing moves unless you have lobbyists or big, political contributions. And, to me, this was really just a really breath of fresh air. That it happened because of people, like I said, getting the town hall meetings, getting public officials in the room, getting people out to the homes to see it for themselves.
We lobbied.
We were the lobbyists. No, it was grassroots. It was the grassroots.
Yes,
and that's the way it's supposed to work.
Yes.
That's the way it's supposed to work.
We
blew the
lobbied.
doors down. This was our motto, the Queens. Tim blew the doors down that were closed to Linda for 20 years. He blew them right down, and we were able to walk through and
Then the brains came in behind me. The girls came in behind me.
When Tim
He's got a mind like a steel trap.
said, well, we became the legislative arm of the coalition.
So true.
And
So true.
we had Frank that helped us a lot along with it, because he was the one that I kept my ear to the rail, and Frank would say it. this bill is going through committee, da, 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 da. So you really helped us along with that. I do want to thank you very much because Congressman Courtney is a very busy man. And he came here to be a part of the 10-year anniversary show.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for that, Joe.
Wow,
And
it's a pleasure. Are you kidding?
it's great to have all of us back together under one roof again. And I'm sure you'll hear from us. And I personally think you should invite Tim and I to come to Congress. I would be there in a heartbeat. So the next person I'm going to interview is Pauline Yoder from CRCOG. And we'll discuss some of the things that CRCOG has done since 2016 until to date.
Before I do my little spiel, if I may just say something about Congressman Courtney. I mean, he has been the member of the federal delegation who has been most supportive of the Crumbling Foundation issue.
Agreed.
And he has done the most in terms of that federal, at that federal level for this group of people.
We're so fortunate to have had him.
Absolutely, I think so. So in terms of CRCOG, the CRCOG's involvement was some of our board members came to us and said, hey, this is a problem in our towns. We need to talk about this. We need to do something about it. And so that's, we had an informational meeting in the summer, in July of 2016, just for us to learn more about it. Like, what is this thing? We talked to the people in Quebec at the time to find out what is parasite, how does it work, what is this happening with these homes, what did they do? And then we formed the board voted to form the ad hoc committee on crumbling foundations, focusing the towns that were affected. If you look at our little heat map, the towns that are most affected are CROG towns. There are some towns that are sort of on the outlying regions, but it's almost all CROG towns that are affected by it. And so it was in our best interest. And I think every year we've had on our legislative agenda something related to crumbling foundations, whether it has to do with the tax assessment or the testing program. The testing program actually is from the governor's. Governor Malloy passed that thanks to your advocacy, right? All the protests going to the governor's mansion.
And having donuts and coffee for us.
That was very nice.
Right,
Very nice of him.
But he was you raised the awareness for him such that he instituted the Crumbling Foundations testing program. And that was part of, he chose CROG to administer it because by then we had established ourselves as an agency that was interested in the issue, that was supportive of the issue, and also knowledgeable regarding the issue. We had assessors come to our meeting. We had building officials,
that's right.
in terms of and building officials working with the assessors as well, because in terms of the tax reduction for your property taxes in each of the towns, there's that issue of, well, we had to work out how do you determine what the level of how much taxes this particular home should have off. There was a lot of just informational too. We call them guidelines just to help people, just to especially the towns that didn't have, some of the towns like Tallinn and Vernon and Stafford, they have a lot of homes. But then there's all these these other towns that are sort of further out from the quarry that do have a few homes, but didn't have just an understanding of what they needed to do. I think that was really helpful for them as well. So,
because you had NECOG. There too.
NECOG was there too. The Northeast Council of Government, Connecticut Council of Governments was there too. And ultimately, when they passed the legislation for CFSIC, they supported. They had the CROG executive director, Lyle Ray at the time, now Matt Hart, as well as NECOG executive director on the board of CFSIC. So that because of that understanding and that learning.
How
next
much
to
can
it.
they get up to?
So it's up to $33,000.
Wow.
But it's generally speaking, I would say we've had we administer CROG once again administers that program.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, the amounts are a lot less than that because what we cover is very limited with regards to it has to be actual structural. We don't cover moving costs. We don't cover living costs. The only thing we cover are those things that
related to the repair.
So it's specifically related to getting a certificate of occupancy that's not covered by CFSIC. So most of these homes don't go anywhere near the cap.
Wasn't it $2 million?
It was $2 million.
From
correct.
HUD?
Yep. And
Wow.
we will be doing the first house this summer.
Yeah.
So the only thing that I would note is that the CDBG testing funding was done by the towns themselves, those 10 towns.
Those 10 towns, correct.
We run the governor's testing program.
Right.
Which has been, I meant to look it up before, but there have been thousands of homes that have been tested so far.
So Pauline, before I move on to Tim Heim, president of CCACB, everyone here would like to say thank you so much
Yeah,
for what
Pauline.
you've done for CROG.
Thank you.
Working under Lyle Ray and now the new gentleman,
Matt Hart.
You took the brunt of it with the testing program. We could not have bridged the gap without you.
Yep.
You were an intermediate that was
doubt.
so important to me and to all of us
Yeah.
here. So thank you for everything you've done and the town leaders. In the next meeting, please let them know I said thank you for, just everything that you've done and highlighting Trinity and UConn's research
Yeah.
and what they've done for the community. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Pauline.
Well, thank you. And I think I want to echo what Joe said. This is is a testament to what you all did with regards to that grassroots action, because if you had not been there, I wouldn't have been there and we wouldn't have gotten it done.
And now, Tim,
Yes.
I want to personally thank you because, wow, we're so lucky to have Tim Heim. Massachusetts really needs somebody like you.
Yeah.
I mean, Michelle's great and all, don't get me wrong. She's got the perseverance, but they don't have anyone not taking no for an answer.
Yeah.
They don't have anyone pushing that door open.
Yeah.
They're still keeping it closed.
And it's disappointing to see that.
It's
it
so
really
disappointing because
And frustrating.
I haven't stopped helping Mass, and
Yeah.
they still have the door closed to me. They will not give me an inch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? Do you not know? I did their timeline, 8 pages on everything they fought to do.
When did they
so
start?
Tim, 2018.
Okay.
Summer of 2018.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
right up. Well, actually, Russell Dupree informed everybody December 2017.
Yeah.
So it's been 8 years, and
Scary.
we're celebrating our 10 year, and we've got over 1,000 houses repaired to date, and 2,427 applicants.
And the funding, the $100 million we're still getting
Another
every year.
100 million.
And that's
So,
kudos to Governor Lamont.
Yep.
You
Yeah.
know,
Malloy helped with the first.
Malloy helped in the beginning.
The first 100 bonded.
Yeah.
And then Lamont did 2 100 bonding.
Yeah.
And then we have the surcharge. So in all, $400 million, almost $500 million.
Yeah.
To,
It's amazing.
to rectify this crisis in Connecticut.
Hey, Connecticut
know.
rocks.
Yeah,
We do rock.
We should.
rock.
Bipartisanship, because they have a concrete caucus.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's,
Yeah.
It's
they're-
everybody.
And now, it was in 2015, because you ran this for 5 years.
Yeah.
So it was in 2015 when you found out, and George Colley broke the news, and Tim, you founded the coalition, and you
Yeah.
had the very first meeting in January of 2016. Also, Tim,
Yeah.
to have the wherewithal to reach out to Canada, they are, what I have found, because I've been so involved with the parasite science end of
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
they are always at the cutting edge.
Yeah.
They're so bright and so kind and wonderful people. They really are.
Wonderful people. Michelle LeMay and Alan
Michael and
Jelinas.
Alan, yes.
They were
yeah.
just,
the coalition. And
they
then
were
the
awesome.
ball.
yeah.
Oh
They
my
were-
God,
they
they've
were
helped
awesome.
me so much. Every time I call them and they're like, Deb,
Yeah.
what do you need? Can you help this country?
And they're
Can you
willing to help.
that?" Oh, they do. All of them.
Yeah, they're great
Michael
people.
and Alan, you know, wonderful people. And,
Yeah.
and they shared everything that they went through.
Yeah,
You know, your campaign was actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
And my campaign was changing minds by changing hearts.
yeah,
In the beginning, you know,
Yeah.
that's how we set it up.
sure.
And you made them own it. You know, you called them out, you made them, I'll never forget that meeting in August of 2017 at the firehouse. A gentleman from Manchester invited the federal delegation, and you
Ben
stood
Carson?
up and you said, nope, that was in 2018.
Oh.
But at the 2017 meeting at the firehouse, you stood up and called them out. You said, we're still waiting, and a picture says 1,000 words.
I did.
Yeah, you let them have it at
I'm
that.
surprised I left.
And I had my whole spiel of what Linda came over the day before of what I was going to say, and they said, well, the governor asked for a presidential declaration, and I had stuff on my lap, and I stood up, everything fell to the floor, and I go, no, no, no. But
Get 'em, Deb.
yeah, even the concrete industry.
Yeah,
You know, when I took them on here in Connecticut, and how lucky are we
Yeah.
to have an industry in Connecticut that actually, you know, at first they opposed us, but then finally they went to that four coalition meeting in October 2019,
yeah,
and they said, you know what, seeing what all these countries are going through, they said we've come up with a way of what we can,
Yeah.
you know, how we can handle the testing,
Yeah.
and come up with a compromise. And then you said to the state, hey, look, I know you asked me to be on the working quarry group, but I think Debbie would be a better
Yeah.
fit for it.
Yeah.
And so you sent it
and it
my
was
way.
true. And it was true.
And I took them to task because they did tell me, listen, little lady, let the men speak, listen to what they have to say, and then say something. And I looked at it like, what? that's not going to happen. Linda
Let me
was
tell
at
you how it's going to
RC.
be.
Linda,
Yeah.
and I had all these reports from Finland, Norway, and they're all standing behind me going, what? It's happened where?
Yeah.
So they
true.
realized this is
Yes,
happening.
she did.
The concrete industry, can you even imagine that? But they realize this is worldwide now. This is happening all over the world. Peritite is prevalent because the more machinery we get, the better equipment
That's
we
right.
get, the more geological material we use. We're tapping into stuff that is
don't
inert.
necessarily know
once
what it
it's
is.
in
That's
the
right.
stone,
That's right.
it's inert. But once you dig it out and you let it get exposed to water and oxygen, you're in a world
Yeah.
of trouble.
Yeah.
And people are not
You
taking.
devastate people's lives.
It does. And Ireland is still not on top of.
They're not.
Not taking peritite on board. They thought
Really?
it was mica, and they found out later it was peritite that's causing all those homes.
Yeah.
And it's the entire house.
Yeah.
So, Tim, I just want to say thank you for what you did for the affected homeowners. The first 5 years, you paved the way.
Yep.
You know, you really did. And
Yeah.
you opened doors for Linda and I that were just completely closed to us. I felt blacklisted or something. I was like, hello, hello.
Well-
I even said to Pauline, just say my name.
Yeah.
Just somebody in the
Anybody.
room. I was a wallflower for a while there. And then I said, you know what, honey, hit the road.
Yeah.
And just went in and blasted them with education.
And it was a team effort.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
was.
I met some amazing people. I met you and Pauline, and
Lynn,
you know,
and the
she's
frankness.
and the frankness. You know,
That's his nickname.
and
the
Cheryl,
frankness.
I got to give kudos to
Yeah,
Cheryl because
Cheryl, too, yes.
she did an amazing job and
She was
helped
part of
me
her
with the
Condo 5
coalition.
group.
Yes, she was. Yes, she was. And
And we didn't, I thought it was like 300 houses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the time my court case went through,
Yeah.
like 300 houses.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was thousands of houses.
Yeah.
It turned into
Yeah.
It was.
mind-blowing.
When
Yeah.
everybody was
Before
coming out of the
your
woodwork
coalition
because of
started?
what you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before the coalition started, and really got involved, there were 200. When the insurance company said, we'll put a pool in July of 2016.
Yeah.
And then when your meetings kicked in, it was 806.
It just kept
DCP
growing
complaints.
and growing.
And they were like, we're not going to do that anymore. So I just want to say thank you very much
Well, thank you.
and appreciate it. And now we have Representative Tom Delnicki. You represent South Windsor?
That's correct. I represent the 14th House District. Prior to going to the legislature, I was the mayor of the town of South Windsor. And I want to say I was one of the few elected officials that actually showed up to Tim Heim's when he had the explanation of what was going on and what was going to happen and what we could conceivably do. And I'll never forget that
You
because
were at a lot of the meetings.
Yeah.
I remember you at all the
Exactly.
CROG meetings.
Yep.
I mean, you attended all of them.
Lot
And
of-
you also came to, everything that we've ever had. You were always a person that, when I was on the work inquiry group, you came to all those meetings.
Right.
Every time we had a public hearing, you were there. You were present. You brought one of the affected homeowners up. I
Yep.
think you actually brought Jim Williams up once. Or it was either you or Tim Heim. I mean, you brought up either Tim or Jim Williams. But
it was Jimmy.
Jeff Curry brought me up,
Yep.
and but what I'd like to talk about, and I have it here with me, is all the legislative acts that, and you've been a part of the legislators
Correct.
since 2016, and you're also on the Connecticut Concrete Caucus. And we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 public acts.
Yep.
We've had a few raised bills, and just recently you passed a bill for an additional $100 million to be bonded over the next 4 years.
And that money is key and critical.
Yes.
Because Mike McGlaris has made the statement that he's coming up to the point where they may actually be able to shut the program down.
Yeah.
But if we didn't get that commitment on the money, we would have only had the Healthy Home Fund. And the Healthy Home Fund does bring in a significant amount of money.
11 million a year, which averages out to be about 70 homes.
Exactly.
A year.
So
But we're
between,
doing about 250 homes a year.
right.
With the bonded money.
So with the bonded money, that's 25 million a year, and then you add the 11 in for the first 4 years, and then we still do have the Healthy Home Fund going
All the
forward.
way to 2030.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say this loudly, I'm going to say it cautiously. There may be a necessity to keep that fund in place, not just for the crumbling foundations, but now they've got the radon issue. Some other communities have some issues that need to be taken care of.
Radon, milk,
And-
mold.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the point being, if you have that money available, you know that you're going to be able to help people that could have other issues. And here's one of the key points about the whole caucus, the Crumbling Foundation Caucus. These folks, and I'll be the first one to admit it, I made a commitment to them that if they ever had a problem in their community, and they needed somebody to back them up,
Yeah.
I'd be there.
It had to be a mutual symposium.
Exactly.
And I
Because-
just found that out at that meeting in September. I didn't realize Tammy got up and Representative,
Nuccio?
yes,
Yep.
yes. I'm not very good with names, but Tammy from Tolland, she got up and spoke at that meeting, and she said, we get other legislators on board to help pass this. Because I didn't realize that, and so I rebuked when Frank Sampson wanted funds for the Hamden apartments that what happened was they built the foundation on organic material,
Right.
which was trees. And the trees started rotting and the foundation started sinking. And so when they wanted to take some funds from us that we fought so hard for, I was like, wait a minute. But then I realized there's a give and take here.
Correct.
And that we got 11 million, and the very first year that we got that surcharge, $1 million of it went towards the New Haven homes that were abut to the tennis courts at Yale that were getting flooded. And they needed foundation help, and so it's helped a lot of homes all over Connecticut. And so we have to realize that some of that money has to go to other things.
And quite frankly, when we actually got the bill passed for the Healthy Home Fund, the $12 surcharge on homeowners' policies, that was a commitment of 15% of that money
Right.
going to other issues, with the exception of radon.
things. Right.
And radon has been added to it, and we're maintaining that lion's share, 85% still, for the concrete crumbling foundation issue. So we're continuing with getting the money from the insurance policies that are collected every year. And we now have 4 more $25 million commitments from the state
And
in the
can
way
I
of bonding money.
Interject here. A lot of cities get what they're called entitlement towns. So they get CDBG funds and HUD funds, whereas some of these rural towns don't have the capacity. They don't have 50,000 residents, so they don't meet that litmus. So it's good that you have the Healthy Home Fund, because that's what it's all about,
Yep.
making the home healthy. Abatement for asbestos, abatement for lead, abatement for radon, and abatement for crumbling foundations. So it's making the home healthy again, and it also brings other legislators to our cause. So I appreciate learning that, and I didn't realize it. I was pushing for, no, this is for us. We fought for it. But it's 15%, we've got to share, because our resources are limited. And what
that
you guys are doing is just incredible, what you did for
that
us.
15% enabled us to get 11 million. You've got to look at it that way.
Yeah.
That by getting other communities on board that had their issues.
Yeah.
If we hadn't done that, I dare say we would not have that
surcharge.
$12 surcharge
Yeah.
on insurance policies.
Yeah.
And occasionally some of my colleagues will poke me about that. They're not too happy. They consider it a tax, and I consider it helping
$1 a
people
month.
to save their homes,
Yeah.
to save their lives, to put their life back in order. And I want to speak for a moment about the caucus.
Okay.
Many a time we hear that government can't get anything done, that the Democrats can't work with the Republicans can't work with the Democrats. The great part about the Crumbling Foundation caucus is we have a Democratic and Republican chairs in the House. I'm the House Republican chair. And we have a Democrat and Republican chair in the Senate. Saud, Senator Gordon, they're both the co-chairs there. And the point being, there's no contention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We stay focused on getting the problem solved, helping people put their lives back together.
In a bipartisan manner.
I speak many a time. I've been asked to speak before different groups. And one thing I tout is the fact that government can come together. They can get focused on a problem. They can come up with a solution. And everybody, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, can be happy about the end result, that people have actually been able to put their lives back together.
We started with Public Act 16-45, which was the reassessments.
Right.
And that helped because then it brought the town leaders involved in, because then they were like, wow, they've come in for a reevaluation on the home and we've got 300, 200, 400, because Tolland, South Windsor, and Vernon are 3 of the hardest hit.
Yep,
Out
absolutely.
of the 20 towns, there's 10 that are really hard hit. But Vernon has the highest number, and then Tolland, and then South Windsor, and Manchester, and so on and so forth. So it was great that, you know, you passed the reassessments. Then Public Act 17-2 was creating the captive. 18-160 and 18-179 was to do with getting the Healthy Home Fund. And then the Residential Disclosure Report. And then Public Act 19-192, Frank and I were very happy about it because it got the condos included. And what something Linda and I dear to our heart was Public Act 21-120, which got us our quarry standards. And then most recently, we've had Public Act 24-55 and 23-185, and that was ensuring that the quarries are in compliance, we are enforcing it, and it's testing the aggregate that's not only coming from quarries but other sources. So they kind of tied up the loose ends. And then just recently, in the last 2 weeks, the bill passed for the additional 100 million funding. And we could not have done this without folks like yourself. We pushed, Linda, the Concrete Queens, Marianne and I, pushed to get bridges inspected. And people weren't listening. And we brought it up at CROG, and Lyle Ray said, okay, we'll look into it. Kevin Nursick, spokesperson for Connecticut DOT, said bridges are fine. We test them prior to building them. The slump test. Nobody does the chemical testing. So we took it upon ourselves to get some concrete off of one of the bad bridges, and we brought it to CROG and gave it to Tom, and he took it right to Trinity and had it tested. So we were able to show that that Stafford Bridge needed to be fixed, and the one in Coventry. So there were some, not the big ones, but there were some small bridges that did need fixing. And I thank you very much for everything you've done. You're still providing information to me, which is good because I still have my, I've founded the Connecticut Crumbling Foundation site, so I still put information out on it. And that's good because I have somebody I still can communicate with in the legislature. So I appreciate everything you've done for us.
So I've got to make an observation. Whenever I needed a document, I would call somebody right here. And it would be, oh, I know exactly where that document is. You'd pull it out and you'd send it over to me, and I'd say, oh, all set.
So I'm speaking with Frank Forsano, and he's part of the Condo 5 group. And we formed October 2018 when we found out buildings over 4 units were going to be excluded from the Public Act 17-2. And it was Frank who explained to me why they interpreted the law to be that anything over 4 units was commercial.
Basically, as far as government funding, FHA and such, anything 4 units and under is considered a single-family property for those purposes. But once you go over 5, it's commercial. And since most condominiums are more than 5 units, my particular building is 8 particular units, it wouldn't qualify. So we went back to the drawing board and worked on getting legislation, which I think you touched on before, in order to be able to make these qualify. Something I wanted to mention was a unique challenge to condominiums once we got this approved was, for one thing, you had to have everything inspected. And then we brought in special inspectors, from what I recall, that were qualified for the program, for the CFSIC program. And then we had to make sure everybody had to sign on. Imagine trying to get 80 or 100 or 200 people to agree on anything. So that was a unique challenge. And even with us, we had to really explain to people there was really a problem, because a lot of times you couldn't see where the cracks are. Another big problem is that because this is water activated, it could be in crawlways that you just wouldn't necessarily go in. So this was it was very challenging to really get people on board. But eventually it happened. And then trying to get everybody had to find somewhere to live. Now with single family homes, everyone had that same issue. But here you have,
Uprooting 8 families.
yeah, up to maybe 12 people all looking at the same time to find somewhere to live. I lived in my father's basement for 4 months in my 50s. It was like being a teenager again.
Yeah.
Still, my house, my rules. So,
Yeah.
that was unique.
How many buildings are repaired now, Frank?
There were 4 buildings that we needed to repair, and we finished the last one in July. So right now, what we're doing is what the program did not pay for was, of course, landscaping, external structures, decks, things like that. But again, we're not going to complain because we did get these foundations done. So again, everybody has some skin in the game. We all have to put in something. And we just finished the last of that. But a problem that we're having now, and I think everyone's having that with insurance,
Yeah.
housing insurance and stuff, the condo master policies are increasing. Ours almost tripled last year. And part of it was because of these foundation issues. And right now,
Even though they're not covering
Right.
the costs of the foundation repairs, they still increase the insurance.
one of the fears is that the buildings that never had the problem, how do they know they won't have the problem? So
Yeah.
that seems to be a fear and issue from what I could tell. As a matter of fact, just before I came here, I was sending some old inspection reports and acquainting people with the program to see if we could get some better insurance quotes, because we're going up another 10%, and you could only go up so much with inflation and such. So
Correct.
insurance is still challenging. So even once you get your foundation repaired, there's always going to be something.
And they didn't start repairing the foundations until 2021. Now, Ryfield 1 had 17 buildings, Ryfield 2 had 4. And so that's 21 buildings between the two. And there's a right of way through Ryfield 1 to 2. And so Ryfield 2 exiting out of the place had trucks and all that. And the landscape was completely removed, and it looked kind of like a little bit of a war zone.
Oh, yeah.
But the contractors were very good about keeping the debris to a certain area. So, but the good news is, even though they excluded us in 2018, by July of 2019, they had legislation that passed that included us. I was there for the governor's signing of the bill. And ever since, like I said, since 2021, we have been fixing condos. And all of Wellington condos are fixed. Yours are all fixed. The Stafford's all fixed. Vernon's are well on their way to being completed. So it ended up being a very good ending to an awful crisis. And so I want to thank you, Frank, for being a member of the Condo 5 group, and also helping me with all these legislative acts. I had Frank as my liaison, who would inform me when a bill was coming up and if it was out of committee, and it helped me educate others. So thank you very much, Frank.
Oh, thank you for your leadership.
Hi, and now I'm here with Len Besthoff, investigative reporter for Connecticut NBC News, and we're here to talk about the 10-year anniversary coming up in July, when this will air in July 2025. And Len, you've been involved in this for pretty much all 10 years, except for the first year when it broke. And you've kept it current, relevant, and you've kept the audience up to date and educated. And is there anything else you want to add on what you've accomplished or what you've done, stories you've told?
You know, before I even go any further, first of all, thank you for everything you've done, not
you for
just
saying
for all the people in crumbling basement land, as we call it, unfortunately, but it is. But you're making it better.
Thank
you know, you and the Concrete Queens certainly have been great contacts to us over the years in terms of keeping us on the ball, keeping us apprised of things, telling us when we do something wrong, because we're all human, and we do. You know, this story has been one that's been gratifying to cover in so many ways, just in terms of the way that the community has come together, the way Republicans and Democrats have worked together on this. Like in my career, I haven't seen very many times anything like this. And that's been very gratifying to see. But in terms of what we've done, you know, in the beginning, you guys really needed us because everybody was listening, but nobody was necessarily doing anything. And what the media is, and what you're doing here now with this program too, you're an agent for change. You're not necessarily wanting to change something, but if people want to change something, you're a way that you can get that message out there. And that was us with you. And what happened over time is that you got people on the political end of the spectrum to really help you. CIFSIC was formed, and oh my gosh, what a great job it has done. Working in tandem with you all. And so for NBC Connecticut and the other media outlets that have done a good job of covering what's been going on here, we were able not to step back, but we needed to let the process happen. And it did. Yet, we still like to keep coming on to update people and say, hey, there's still another 100 million that people need. Or in this case, thankfully, now this last 100 million tranche of money is
that just passed.
Is scheduled to come through.
And you also covered when we hit the 1,000 mark. Homes repair, which was huge. And also, I'm hoping, Len, while I have you on film, that you'll cover next year. The international conference is going to be in Mystic. And
really? No, I did not know that.
The University of Connecticut.
Oh yeah, we'll be there.
Is going to be organizing it. Laval passed the baton to UConn, and so through NIST funding, we are going to have this international conference. And you covered the October 2019. I called you, and you said, we'll send a team out. You sent a team out when I was on the Working Corey group. But you guys came to that, and it was 3 countries. And then you actually covered the Brussels meeting that we had when we addressed the members of the European Parliament. And then you covered last year's Canadian International Conference that had 11 countries. We're hoping by next year there's going to be more. Because let's face it, like I said earlier, more and more countries, as we use the good geological material, we're tapping into material we shouldn't be. And the pyrite and the pyrrhotite, we're using up all the good stone, and now we're reverting to stone that's not always sourced. And you also covered when we passed Public Act 21-120 for quarry standards. So you have been at every milestone over here for all the legislative acts that have passed. You guys have reported about it.
Well, I want to give credit, though, and I'm sure you've done this already, to George Colley, the reporter who broke this story, and Dave Miknowitz, the photographer who did it with him every step of the way, and then our executive producer at the time, Sharon Butterworth, who gave them the time to do this and make it happen. I'm not necessarily downplaying what I've done, but you know, I've covered it subsequently to that and kept, you know, the light on, which was important, and it still is, because you know, as much as you think you're out of the woods right now, and things are looking good, and thank goodness they are, but you guys got to stay on the ball, and that's why you're here, and that's why I'm here, right?
It's a long tail
in different
crisis,
reasons.
and it's affected
Yeah.
5 industries. So, and thousands of homeowners. And CCACB just reported they're at 2,427 applicants. So, since opening 6 years
And
ago.
I cannot emphasize what a great job they have done. Boy,
Yeah,
how, I
CCACB
mean,
has
how
done a
about
great
that?
job.
Yeah.
CROG has done a great
Yes,
job.
CROG.
The coalition, the
Coalition.
Concrete Queens. It was really a grassroots
And the legislators.
effort. Oh,
and
yeah.
the leaders.
I
and
mean,
the governors.
yeah.
Several governors.
Yep.
Yes. Everybody deserves
Yeah,
credit
we
here.
all, and Congressman Courtney.
Oh, my. And Congressman
God.
Larson.
We
Yeah.
were so lucky to have things fall the way they did. Yes, it was a perfect storm for us to have had all these damaged homes, but it was also a perfect storm in everyone coming together because in Massachusetts, it's been 8 years and they're still trying and still raising awareness, and the door is still closed.
I mean, look,
So
would
we're
it
so
have
lucky
been
to have had you.
advantageous if the insurance companies had stepped up and paid? And
Oh,
that's an
yes.
argument that, and I understand that that's water under the bridge, but I have to wonder if that's what Massachusetts is waiting for.
Well, I've learned, and I told the governor this when he came to my home, Governor Lamont, it's beating a dead horse. It really is, because they are not budging. They will not cover it. They offloaded the mitigation onto the homeowner because they realized, there was a pattern forming, and the insurance service organization that has 1,400 members, they saw the pattern and
made
they
boilerplate.
eventually wrote out,
Yeah.
collapses unless they're sudden and abrupt. So
Imminent collapse was the phrase.
yeah. And, that's an illusionary coverage because unless a bomb hit your house, it's not going to collapse. It's not supposed to collapse. Actually, when the homes get lifted, though, the walls do collapse. They don't just stand there as they should. They just fall in and crumble. If the iron goes to rust, the sulfite turns to dust. So, but we were very fortunate here in Connecticut to have such great people to work with, and we just, we came together and put egos aside, and
It's a great story.
and it is, and it's got a good, happy ending.
And I mean, but it's not a story. These are lives.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
Yeah.
it's so, look, it hasn't been easy.
No, there's been divorces, there's been deaths in Canada, 10 suicides. Ireland, they've had suicides. I mean, and a lot of divorces. It breaks up homes, because without a healthy foundation, you're not building on a healthy foundation, if you know what I mean. But I'm honored to have you here on my show.
we
You've
are honored.
interviewed me
Thank you so much for
many
having
a
us.
times, and so to reverse it for
It
me
is different.
interviewing,
Yeah.
it is really different. Like I said early on, it took a village, and we were very, very fortunate that, it happened in 2015, the breaking news story. And by 2017, we had a remediation scheme. And by 2019, it was up and running, a captive insurance.
Incredible.
And in 6 years, we've done 1,000 homes.
It is amazing.
It is. It really is.
I mean, look, in my career, I've seen a lot of times when government hasn't worked.
Right. And there's delay after delay, or obstacles, or as Mass and Ireland are finding out, So we've been really lucky.
Yes.
So I want to thank you for coming on today.
Well, thanks for having us, and
Yeah.
thanks for everything you've done.
Yeah.
And I hope
Our
folks really
10-year
enjoy this.
anniversary.
Yeah.
And folks, thanks for joining us today on our 10-year anniversary. And I will see you next month when I start my 3-part series on Ireland. Thank you and goodbye.